Today is the 1st of August, 2009, and we come to a new Samyutta, number 20th chapter of the Samyutta Nikaya called Opamma Samyutta. This Opamma means simile, and this word Opamma is Pali. You see our Malay word is Umpama. Umpama probably that's derived from the Sanskrit. It's the same meaning. 20.1. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Naisavati in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Blessed One said this: Monks, just as all the rafters of a big house lead to the roof beam and converge upon the roof peak, and all are removed when the roof peak is removed, so too all unwholesome states are rooted in ignorance and converge upon ignorance, and all are uprooted when ignorance is uprooted. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will dwell diligently, thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. So, here the Buddha is saying, all unwholesome states, all evil karma that we do, it's all because of ignorance. People who don't know the Dhamma, they do evil deeds and suffer for it later. So it's very important to remove ignorance by learning the Dhamma. And the Dhamma means the original suttas, discourses of the Buddha in the Nikayas. 20.3 at Naisavati. Monks, just as it is easy for burglars to assail those families that have many women and few men, so too it is easy for non-human beings to assail a monk who has not developed and cultivated. Here it says liberation of mind by loving kindness, but I think probably a better translation is liberation of loving kindness by the mind, or more correctly, radiation of loving kindness by the mind. Just as it is difficult for burglars to assail those families that have few women and many men, so too it is difficult for non-human beings to assail a Bhikkhu, a monk who has developed and cultivated a radiation of loving kindness by mind. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate radiation of loving kindness by mind. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says, if a monk or even anybody does not develop loving kindness, metta, radiation of loving kindness by the mind, that means your mind has to be quite strong and so that you can radiate loving kindness. So, if you are able to do that, then it's difficult for ghosts and devas, non-human beings, to assail a monk. Assail a monk means like to attack a monk. So, elsewhere, somewhere else, the Buddha says that there are a lot of unseen beings around us, and if we develop metta, loving kindness, then that is our protection. They will not harm us. Firstly, those beings, deviant beings like ghosts and all that, their minds are very disturbed. They are very disturbed minds, very agitated minds. If a person can develop loving kindness to the extent that it can radiate it, that means the mind is very calm. Very calm. If your mind is very calm, then these beings, ghosts and all that, with agitated minds, they won't be able to come near you because you are a different frequency from them. So, developing metta, loving kindness, is very good. 20.4 at Naisavati, the Buddha said, Monks, if someone were to give away 100 pots of food as charity in the morning, 100 pots of food as charity at noon, and 100 pots of food as charity in the evening, And if someone else were to develop radiation of loving kindness by mind, or develop a mind of loving kindness here, even for the time it takes to pull a cow's udder, either in the morning, at noon, or in the evening, this would be more fruitful than the former. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate radiation of loving kindness by mind. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. So the Buddha says, if we practice loving kindness, even for a short moment, it is more fruitful than doing a lot of charity. If someone does a lot of charity, but he has a lot of anger, of hatred, then his the merit or the blessings from that charity is not so great. But if he has a lot of loving kindness, even he does not give charity, it is more fruitful, more meritorious. 20.5. Monks, suppose there was a sharp-pointed spear, and a man would come along thinking, I will bend this sharp-pointed spear with my hand or fist, twist it out of shape, and twirl it around. What do you think, monks? Would it be possible for that man to do so? No, Venerable Sir. For what reason? Because it is not easy to bend back that sharp-pointed spear with one's hand or fist, to twist it out of shape, or to twirl it around. That man would only experience fatigue and vexation. So too monks, when a monk has developed and cultivated radiation of loving kindness by mind, made it a vehicle, made it a basis, stabilized it, exercised himself in it, and fully perfected it, if a non-human being thinks he can overthrow his mind, that non-human being would only experience fatigue and vexation. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate radiation of loving kindness by mind. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. So here again the Buddha is saying, if we can radiate loving kindness, then our mind is very strong, and a non-human being would not be able to overpower our mind. 20.6. At Naisavati, the Buddha said, monks, suppose there were 4 firm-bowed archers, trained, dexterous, experienced, and standing in each of the 4 directions. Then a man would come along thinking, I will catch the arrows shot by these 4 archers in each of the 4 directions before they reach the ground, and then I will bring them back. What do you think, monks? Would this be enough to say, that man is a speedster endowed with supreme speed? And the monk said, Venerable Sir, even if he could catch the arrow shot by 1 archer before it reached the ground, and could bring it back, that would be enough to say, that man is a speedster endowed with supreme speed. There is no need to speak about the arrow shot by all 4 archers. And the Buddha said, monks, as swift as that man is, still swifter are the sun and moon. As swift as that man is, and as swift as are the sun and moon, and as swift as are the deities that run before the sun and moon. The vital energies perish even more swiftly than that. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. You will dwell diligently. Thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says, this vital energy that I translate here the book says vital formations. The word is ayu sankara. Ayu is life. Sankara can be said to be conditioners. Life conditioners. Life conditioners is our vitality, our vital energy. So the Buddha is saying, swifter than that man who can catch the arrows are the sun and the moon when they move in the sky. But swifter than the sun and the moon are the deities or the devas that fly before the sun and the moon. And faster than all of them is life passing by, one life after another lifetime. It's like a dream going by so fast. If we think about it, we think about our childhood. We think about childhood, I think that it's just yesterday only I was a small boy or a small girl, 10 years old, and suddenly now I'm old already, white hairs on my head and all that. Not much time left. So, just like that. That's why when the Buddha recalled his many past lives, so many thousands of lives, so many world cycles, then he realized that he had been through so many stages of life, so many existences, all the different type of existences he had gone through. And he had been a world universal monarch, a king that rules the whole world a few times. And that was, among human beings, the best life. And so he was a bit sentimental about it also when he thought about that life, which was so pleasant. In fact, he was so sentimental about it. Then when the Buddha was about to pass away, he purposely went to that spot where he used to be the king of the whole world. And he passed away there. Then Ananda asked him, Bhagavan, there are so many devotees in the cities would be very glad to see you. Why you come to this way out place to pass away? And the Buddha said, don't say this is a way out place. Long time ago, there was a wheel-turning king, this wheel-turning monarch, king of the whole world, universal monarch. He said this was his capital. I said he used to be that king. So you consider actually life passes by very fast. That's why the Buddha says in the suttas that there are devas and devis whose lifespan is millions and millions and millions of years. But when it's time for them to die, and they think, oh, my life is so short, still haven't enjoyed enough. That's why the Buddha says life goes by so fast. 20.7 at Naisavati, Buddha said, monks, once in the past, the Dasarahas had a cattle drum called the Samana. When the Samana became cracked, the Dasarahas inserted another pack. Eventually the time came when the Samana's original drumhead had disappeared and only a collection of packs remained. So too monks, the same thing will happen with the monks in the future. And those discourses spoken by the Tathagata that are deep in meaning, supramundane, dealing with emptiness, are being recited. They will not be eager to listen to them, nor lend an ear to them, nor apply their minds to understand them. And they will not think those teachings should be studied and mastered. But when those discourses that are mere poetry, composed by poets, beautiful in words and phrases, created by outsiders, spoken by disciples, are being recited, they will be eager to listen to them, will lend an ear to them, will apply their minds to understand them, and they will think those teachings should be studied and mastered. In this way, monks, those discourses spoken by the Tathagata that are deep in meaning, supramundane, dealing with emptiness, will disappear. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. And those discourses spoken by the Tathagata that are deep in meaning, supramundane, dealing with emptiness, are being recited. We will be eager to listen to them, will lend an ear to them, will apply our minds to understand them, and we will think those teachings should be studied and mastered. Thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. It's a very important sutta. The Buddha gave a warning in the future, just like the drum, when the drum starts to crack, they put a pack over it, and then later they put another pack. Eventually the packs surround the drum and you can't recognize the drum, you only see packs all around. So in the same way, the Buddha is saying, right now the suttas are available, this is the true Dhamma, but in the future, disciples meaning later monks, disciples of the Buddha, later monks, they will write other books which are beautiful sounding, interesting and all that. Then people will be interested in those instead of the suttas, the original discourses of the Buddha. And then the Dhamma becomes impure. Then the true Dhamma will not be recognized. People will think the Dhamma is what is in the commentaries, in the later books like the Mahayana Sutras, the Abhidhamma, the Jataka stories and all that. Then that will conceal the true Dhamma. So here the Buddha says, here it says created by outsiders, but the translation, the Pali text society is not created by outsiders, it is alien. Alien, that means it has nothing to do with the Dhamma, it is outside the Dhamma. Those later books are outside the real Dhamma, and they are spoken by disciples. We know those later books, Abhidhamma and Visuddhimagga and Jataka stories and all that, although there is some use in them, but unless you are familiar with the original teachings of the Buddha, then you may be led astray, you may be given wrong views. Like now, people think that jhanas, samadhi is not important, vipassana is more important. This is totally contradictory to what the Buddha says. The Buddha always says that the jhanas are the footprints of the Buddha. In one of the suttas, the Buddha said, if a person wants to get enlightened, the various stages to attain enlightenment are the jhanas. Just like a coral tree flower blooming, various stages. So too, when a person progresses to enlightenment, he must go through the various stages of jhana. So the Buddha is saying that we should take the trouble to study the suttas that are deep in meaning, supramundane, transcending the world, dealing with emptiness. This Buddha is telling us that we should put importance on the suttas, not in other books. Just like nowadays, a lot of people, instead of going to study the suttas, they can study all kinds of other later books. 20.8. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Vesali in the great wood in the hall with the peaked roof. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, "Monks, Venerable Sir," those monks replied. The Blessed One said, "Monks, now the Lichavis dwell using blocks of wood as cushions. They are diligent and ardent in exercise. King Ajatasattu of Magadha, the Videhan son, does not gain access to them. He does not get a hold on them. But in the future, the Lichavis will become delicate with soft and tender hands and feet. They will sleep until sunrise on soft beds with pillows of cotton wool. Then King Ajatasattu of Magadha will gain access to them. Then he will get a hold on them. Monks, now the monks dwell using blocks of wood as cushions. They are diligent and ardent in striving. Mara, the evil one, does not gain access to them. He does not get a hold on them. But in the future, the monks will become delicate with soft and tender hands and feet. They will sleep until sunrise on soft beds with pillows of cotton wool. Then Mara, the evil one, will gain access to them. He will get a hold on them. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. Using blocks of wood as cushions, you will dwell diligent and ardent in striving. Thus should you train yourselves. So here the Buddha is saying that just as the Lichavis, when they sleep, they use blocks of wood to sleep as cushions. So because it's not so comfortable, they can't sleep very long, they get up early. But later, when they become luxurious, then they want to sleep on soft bed and soft pillows and all that. And then when they enjoy life too much, then King Ajatasattu, the enemy, the neighbor, will conquer their country. conquer them, overpower them. So in the same way, the Buddha is warning that monks, if they are ascetic, they strive hard, they don't sleep so much, they're not luxurious, then Mara cannot overpower them. But when the monks become luxurious, backslide, and become enjoy life too much, then they will be overcome by Mara, the evil one. So the Buddha says that monks should be diligent and always striving. 20.9. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Now on that occasion, a certain newly ordained monk was approaching families excessively. The other monks told him, the Venerable One should not approach families excessively. But when he was being admonished by them, he said, these elder monks think they can approach families, so why can't I? Stop here for a moment. So this new monk, he saw a lot of old monks, elder monks, going to visit lay people. So he thinks he also is entitled to visit the lay people frequently. Then a number of monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and reported this matter to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said, just now I forgot to say the previous sutta, when it was mentioned Tathagata, that is one of the names of the Buddha, Tathagata, thus gone one. In Chinese they translate it as Du Lai, thus come one, but the actual meaning is thus gone one. Buddha is gone and won't come back. Then the Buddha said, monks, once in the past there was a great lake in a forest with bull elephants dwelling in its vicinity. Those elephants would plunge into the lake, pull up lotus stalks with their trunks, and having washed them thoroughly, would chew them and swallow them free from mud. This increased their beauty and strength, and on that account they did not meet death or deadly suffering. Their young offspring, emulating those great bull elephants, would plunge into the lake and pull up lotus stalks with their trunks, but without washing them thoroughly, without chewing them, they would swallow them along with the mud. This did not increase their beauty and strength, and on that account they met death or deadly suffering. Stop here for a moment. So these big elephants, they are experienced. They jump into the pond, and then they pluck the lotus stalks. They clean them before they eat them. But these silly young elephants, they didn't notice carefully. They tried to copycat the old elephants, and they just took up the lotus stalks and ate them with mud and everything. So they became very sick, or they died. So two monks, here the elder monks, dressed in the morning, and taking bowl and robe, enter a village or town for alms. There they speak on the Dhamma, and the lay people show their confidence to them. They use their gains without being tied to them, uninfatuated with them, not blindly absorbed in them, seeing the danger in them, and understanding the escape. This increases their beauty and strength, and on that account they do not meet death or deadly suffering. The newly ordained monks, emulating the elder monks, dressed in the morning, and taking bowl and robe, enter a village or town for alms. There they speak on the Dhamma, and the lay people show their confidence to them. They use their gains while being tied to them, infatuated with them, blindly absorbed in them, not seeing the danger in them, and not understanding the escape. This does not increase their beauty and strength, and on that account they meet death or deadly suffering. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will use our gains without being tied to them, uninfatuated with them, not blindly absorbed in them, seeing the danger in them, and understanding the escape. Thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. So here, this sutta is about young monks. They see older monks doing something, and they think they're entitled to it also. That's a problem. Sometimes new monks are a bit arrogant. So they think whatever the elder monks do, they also can copycat. And sometimes they don't ask for advice, they don't ask for permission, they just do as they like. Here, sometimes I see this also. So there is an example given, I forgot. 20.10. Naisavati. On that occasion, a certain monk was socializing with families excessively. The other monks told him, just now I wanted to say, there is a Zen story about a Zen monk, and he was supposed to be a very experienced monk. So he had a lot of disciples. And he told his disciples to be very mindful, whatever they do, to do slowly, eat their food slowly, walk slowly, do everything slowly. So the disciples did that. But after some time they complained to him. They say, Master, you asked us to do everything slowly, but we see you do everything so fast. Then the Master said, how can you compare with me? What the Master is trying to say is that even though he does things fast, he is mindful because his mind is developed. He's mindful. He doesn't have to show that he is mindful. His mind is very sharp. Whereas these young monks, their minds are not trained, are not developed. So they think they have a right also to what their master does. They don't realize that their standard is different. 20.10 Naisavati. Now on that occasion, a certain monk was socializing with families excessively. The other monks told him, the Venerable One should not socialize with families excessively. But though he was admonished by them, he did not desist. Then a number of monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and reported this matter to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said, Monks, once in the past, a cat stood by an alley or a drain or a rubbish bin, watching for a little mouse, thinking, when this little mouse comes out for food, right there I will grab it and eat it. Then that mouse came out for food, and the cat grabbed it and swallowed it hastily without chewing it. Then that little mouse ate the cat's intestines and mesentery, and on that account the cat met with death and deadly suffering. I'll stop here for a moment. So this mouse, because of greed, without chewing the rat, he swallowed it. And the rat, seems that it was still alive, went into the intestines and the big intestines and started to chew there. This reminds me, about a year ago or something, we saw in the newspaper about anaconda, one of the big snakes in South America. So it swallowed alligator, crocodile. So it swallowed the crocodile, and the crocodile went into its body. And then the crocodile inside was half dead. And then he gave one final kick. And tore the skin of this anaconda. So the anaconda, the body pierced, the anaconda died. So both also died. This is a bit similar. Then the Buddha said, so too monks. Here some monk dresses in the morning and taking bowl and robe enters a village or town for alms with body, speech and mind unguarded, without setting up mindfulness, unrestrained in his sense faculties. He sees women there, lightly clad or lightly attired, and lust invades his mind. With his mind invaded by lust, he meets death or deadly suffering. For this, monks, is death in the Noble One's discipline, that one gives up the training and returns to the lower life, that means disrobes. This is deadly suffering, that one commits a certain defiled offense of a kind that allows for rehabilitation, that means a sanghadisesa. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will enter a village or town for alms, with body, speech and mind guarded, with mindfulness set up, restrained in our sense faculties. Thus should you train yourselves. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says that when a monk goes on alms round, he has to guard his senses and be very mindful. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, you have to be equanimous. Otherwise, like here, some monks, they see some women and then they have lustful thoughts. But then in our alms round, we seldom see that. But if you are not mindful, then the common thing is that you will step on shit. dog shit, he will step on glass. So that will teach you to be mindful. Now I come to the next Samyutta, 21. Bhikkhu Samyutta. Bhikkhu are monks, monks who are fully ordained. 21.1. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Naisavati in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Venerable Mahamoggallana addressed the monks thus, "Friends, monks." "Friend," those monks replied. The Venerable Mahamoggallana said this, "Hear, friends, while I was alone in seclusion, a reflection arose in my mind thus. It is said, 'Noble silence, noble silence.' What now is noble silence?" Then, friends, it occurred to me, here with the subsiding of thought directed and sustained, a monk enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, is without thought directed and sustained, and has rapture and happiness, delight and happiness born of concentration. This is called noble silence. Then, friends, with the subsiding of thought directed and sustained, I entered and dwelt in the second jhana, which has delight and happiness born of concentration. While I dwelt therein, perception and attention, accompanied by thought, assailed me. Let's stop here for a moment. This sutta refers to the time before the Venerable Mahamoggallana was enlightened. Venerable Moggallana was formerly an ascetic with an external sect, and he and Venerable Sariputta became disciples of the Buddha. And Venerable Mahamoggallana, after becoming a disciple of the Buddha, then he learned meditation, he learned the Dhamma, and he strove so hard that after 7 days he became enlightened. For him to become enlightened in 7 days, that means he actually didn't sleep. He kept on striving. So this is that time. So here he's talking about noble silence. Noble silence means the mind is totally silent. Our normal mind is always chattering. There's always like a conversation in our mind. We're thinking about this, thinking about that. But it's not a dialogue, it's a monologue. We are talking to ourselves. So, in the first jhana, you still have this, what is called skillful thoughts. You still have some skillful thoughts. That means thoughts connected with your meditation. For example, when you enter the first jhana, then you think, this is a very nice state. I must remember to retrace my steps, how to come to achieve this again. That kind of thought, it's not ordinary thoughts. But when a person enters the second jhana, the mind is so strong, the thoughts cannot arise at all. It feels like he has tapped the energy in the world. So this Venerable Mahamoggallana says, on that occasion he attained the second jhana. But after entering the second jhana, then perception and attention accompanied by thought assailed me. Then thought started to rise again. Then, friends, the Blessed One came to me by means of psychic power and said this, Moggallana, do not be negligent regarding noble silence, Brahmin. Steady your mind in noble silence. Unify your mind in noble silence. Concentrate your mind on noble silence. Then, friends, on a later occasion, with the subsiding of thought directed and sustained, I entered and dwelt in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, is without thought directed and sustained, and has delight and happiness born of concentration. If, friends, one speaking rightly could say of anyone, he is a disciple who attained to greatness of direct knowledge with the assistance of the teacher, it is of me that one could rightly say this. It's the end of the sutta. So here, when the Venerable Moggallana, he had difficulty staying in that second jhana, then the Buddha came to him. So, because he was very sleepy, so his concentration was not so good because the mind was not so strong yet. Then because he knew that the Buddha was looking at him with psychic power, observing him, so he dare not slack. So he concentrated very hard, used all his energy, and within 7 days he became enlightened. So he says, if anyone can say that he attained to greatness with the assistance of the teacher, he said it is him. 21.2. There the Venerable, at Savati, there the Venerable Sariputta addressed the monks thus, "Friends, monks." "Friend," those monks replied. The Venerable Sariputta said, "Dear friends, when I was alone in seclusion, a reflection arose in my mind thus, is there anything in the world through the change and alteration of which sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair might arise in me? Then it occurred to me, there is nothing in the world through the change and alteration of which sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair might arise in me." Stop here for a moment. So here he's saying if that he could not find anything in the world or any person where because of impermanence there is change and alteration, that it could give him suffering. Normally, if you say like we are attached to our spouse or you're attached to your children and something happens to them, that means change and alteration, either they get sick or they die or what, then you will suffer greatly. But he says he could find nothing that could make him suffer. When this was said, the Venerable Ananda said to the Venerable Sariputta, "Friend Sariputta, even if the teacher himself were to undergo change and alteration, wouldn't sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair arise in you?" Let's stop here for a moment. So here Venerable Ananda wanted to test him. Said, because Venerable Ananda knows that there is nobody Venerable Sariputta loves and respects more than the Buddha. So he says, what if something happened to the Buddha? Would you feel any sorrow? And Venerable Sariputta said, "Friend, even if the teacher himself were to undergo change and alteration, still sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair would not arise in me. However, it would occur to me, the teacher, so influential, so powerful and mighty, has passed away. If the Blessed One had lived for a long time, that would have been for the welfare and happiness of the multitude, out of compassion for the world, for the good welfare and happiness of devas and humans." And then Venerable Ananda said, "It must be because I-making, mind-making and the underlying tendency to conceit have been thoroughly uprooted in the Venerable Sariputta for a long time, that even if the teacher himself were to undergo change and alteration, still sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair would not arise in him." It's the end of the sutta. So here Venerable Ananda is praising the Venerable Sariputta that he has uprooted that ego, the conceit, to think that I am, I exist, has been uprooted. So that's why he would not feel any sorrow. 21.3. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savati in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Now on that occasion, the Venerable Sariputta and the Venerable Mahamoggallana were dwelling at Rajagaha in a single dwelling in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then in the evening, the Venerable Sariputta emerged from seclusion and approached the Venerable Mahamoggallana. He exchanged greetings with the Venerable Mahamoggallana, and when they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side and said to him, "Friend Moggallana, your faculties are serene, your facial complexion is pure and bright. Has the Venerable Mahamoggallana spent the day in a peaceful dwelling?" And he said, "I spent the day in a gross dwelling, friend, but I did have some Dhamma talk." And Venerable Sariputta asked, "With whom did the Venerable Mahamoggallana have some Dhamma talk?" And Venerable Mahamoggallana said, "I had some Dhamma talk with the Blessed One, friend." And Venerable Sariputta said, "But the Blessed One is far away, friend. He is now dwelling at Savati in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Did the Venerable Mahamoggallana approach the Blessed One by means of psychic power, or did the Blessed One approach the Venerable Mahamoggallana by means of psychic power?" And Venerable Mahamoggallana said, I did not approach the Blessed One by means of psychic power, friend, nor did the Blessed One approach me by means of psychic power. Rather, the Blessed One cleared his divine eye and divine ear element to communicate with me, and I cleared my divine eye and divine ear element to communicate with the Blessed One. I stop here for a moment. So here, where Mahamoggallana said he did not fly to the Buddha, and the Buddha did not fly to see him, but because they have the heavenly eye and the heavenly ear, even though so far away they could see each other and they could talk to each other. What kind of Dhamma talk did the Venerable Mahamoggallana have with the Blessed One? And he said, "Here, friend, I said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, it is said, one with energy aroused. One with energy aroused. In what way, Venerable Sir, does one have energy aroused?" The Blessed One then said to me, "Here, Moggallana, a monk with energy aroused dwells thus. Willingly, let only my skin, sinews and bones remain, and let the flesh and blood dry up in my body. But I will not relax my energy so long as I have not attained what can be attained by manly strength, by manly energy, by manly exertion. It is in such a way, Moggallana, that one has aroused energy. Such, friend, is the Dhamma talk that I had with the Blessed One." So here the Buddha says, a monk who is energetic will think, let my body wither away, but I will not relax my energy until I have attained what can be attained by manly exertion. And then Venerable Sariputta said, "Friend, compared to the Venerable Mahamoggallana, we are like a few grains of gravel compared to the Himalayas, the king of mountains. For the Venerable Mahamoggallana is of such great psychic power and might that if he so wished, he could live on for an aeon." Let's stop here for a moment. So here the Venerable Sariputta says that Venerable Mahamoggallana, his psychic power is so great that if he wanted to, he could live for aeon. It's a life cycle, not a world cycle. Life cycle. Life cycle means like during the time of the Buddha, the average lifespan was supposed to be 100 years. He could, if he wanted, live up to 100 years. Let's see what the notes here say, 387. It seems it's actually a kappa, but the commentary says ayu kappa. The full human lifespan of 120 years. So here it seems that the sutta says it is a kappa, a world cycle. But I don't think that anybody can live for a world cycle. So it could be that it means that the full life cycle at that time was supposed to be 120 years. 100 years. Then, so Venerable Sariputta praised the Venerable Mahamoggallana. Then Venerable Mahamoggallana said, "Friend, compared to the Venerable Sariputta, we are like a few grains of salt compared to a barrel of salt. For the Venerable Sariputta has been extolled, lauded and praised in many ways by the Blessed One. As Sariputta is supreme in wisdom, virtue and peace, so a monk who has gone beyond at best can only equal him. In this manner, both these great Nagas rejoice in what was well stated and well declared by the other." Naga means a great being. These two chief disciples, they praise each other. Venerable Mahamoggallana, his psychic power is the greatest among all the monk disciples of the Buddha. And Venerable Sariputta, his wisdom is the greatest among all the monks. 21.4 Naisavati. Now on that occasion, a certain newly ordained monk, after returning from the alms round, would enter his dwelling after the meal and pass the time living at ease and keeping silent. He did not render service to the monks at the time of making robes. Then a number of monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and reported this matter to him. Then the Blessed One addressed a certain monk thus, "Come, monk, tell that monk in my name that the teacher calls him." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the monk replied. And he went to the monk and told him, "The teacher calls you, friend." Let's stop here for a moment. You see, monks, when monks live in a monastery and there's something to be done, generally all the monks should come together and help. That is expected because we live together, we should cooperate and help each other. But if a monk does not come, sometimes the other monks are not happy with him. So like in this case, Yes, friend, that monk replied, and he approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him and sat down to one side. The Blessed One then said to him, Is it true, monk, that after returning from the alms round, you enter your dwelling after the meal and pass the time living at ease and keeping silent, and you do not render service to the monks at the time of making robes? And he said, I am doing my own duty, Venerable Sir. Then the Blessed One, having known with his own mind the reflection the monk's mind, addressed the monks thus, Monks, do not find fault with this monk. This monk is one who gains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind, and provide a pleasant dwelling in this very life. And he is one who, by realizing it for himself with direct knowledge, in this very life enters and dwells in that unsurpassed goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from the household life into homelessness. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said, Not by means of slack endeavor, not by means of feeble effort, is this Nibbana to be achieved, release from all suffering. This young monk is a supreme man indeed. He carries about his final body, having conquered Mara and his mount. That's the end of the sutta. So here, the Buddha, after reading the mind of this monk, realized that he was already an arahant. And then the Buddha told the other monks, no need to find fault with him. So, if a monk does not join the others in doing physical work, then he should be at least doing spiritual work. That means he should be practicing hard. That's the only time a monk has excuse when he's actually meditating very hard, or he's already attained arahanthood. Otherwise, he is expected to join the other monks in work. 21.6 at Savatthi. Then the Venerable Lakuntaka Bhadia approached the Blessed One. The Blessed One saw him coming in the distance and addressed the monks thus, Monks, do you see that monk coming? Ugly, unsightly, deformed, despised among the monks. Yes, Venerable Sir. That monk is of great psychic power and might. It is not easy to find an attainment which that monk has not already attained. And he is one who, by realizing it for himself, with direct knowledge, in this very life, enters and dwells in that unsurpassed goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from the household life into homelessness. This is what the Blessed One said. And he further said, Geese, herons and peacocks, elephants and spotted deer, all are frightened of the lion, regardless of the body size. In the same way among human beings, the small one endowed with wisdom, he is the one that is truly great, not the fool with a well-built body. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is saying, don't judge monk from his outside looks. So this monk, Lakuntaka Bhadia, is ugly looking, deformed, and yet he is a great arahant with great psychic power. So that's why when you look at suttas like this, or like in the case of Angulimala, who killed so many people yet could attain arahanthood, then you realize actually all this talk about paramis is not valid. You don't need paramis. Paramis are perfections of character, where they stated that the Buddha cultivated these paramis over a long period of time. 4 asankhya kappas and 100 mahakappas, meaning an eternity of time to perfect himself before he could become enlightened. You find a case like this, even though this person, if you look at his ugly body, you think that he doesn't have much parami. Or if you look at Angulimala, he killed hundreds of people, then definitely he doesn't have much parami. And yet they could become enlightened because they strove very hard. And we have the Dhamma to guide them. So that's why they become enlightened, not because of parami, but because of practicing the right path, namely the Noble Eightfold Path. 21.8 at Savatthi. Then the Venerable Nanda, the Blessed One's maternal cousin, put on well-pressed and well-ironed robes, painted his eyes, took a glazed bowl, and approached the Blessed One. Having paid homage to the Blessed One, he sat down to one side, and the Blessed One said to him, Nanda, this is not proper for you, a clansman who has gone forth out of faith from the household life into homelessness, that you wear well-pressed and well-ironed robes, paint your eyes, and carry a glazed bowl. This is proper for you, Nanda, a clansman who has gone forth out of faith from the household life into homelessness, that you be a forest dweller, an alms-food eater, a rag robes wearer, and that you dwell indifferent to sensual pleasures. This is what the Blessed One said, and he further said, When shall I see Nanda as a forest dweller, wearing robes stitched from rags, subsisting on the scraps of strangers, indifferent towards sensual pleasures? Then some time later, the Venerable Nanda became a forest dweller, an alms-food eater, a rag robes wearer, and he dwelt indifferent to sensual pleasures. That's the end of the sutta. So you see, this Nanda was the half, sometimes you say it's the half brother of the Buddha. It's actually the cousin, because Nanda was supposed to be the son of Mahapajapati. The Buddha's mother passed away 7 days after giving birth to the Buddha. And then the sister, the mother's sister, was Mahapajapati. She looked after the Buddha as though her own son. At the same time, she gave birth to Nanda. In a way they grew up together. So after the Buddha became enlightened, Buddha managed to persuade Nanda to renounce. But Nanda was not very keen to renounce, to become a monk. He was engaged to a beautiful girl, supposed to get married. And then the Buddha led him to the forest and ordained him. So because he was not eager to become a monk, he was still very worldly. His robes also he will iron and painted his eyes. This thing, like some monks nowadays. But because he mixed with ascetic monks slowly, and the Buddha criticized him, so he felt ashamed. Then he changed his ways, became an ascetic monk, and also realized enlightenment. So actually, a lot of people, in a way, are like that. They come into monkhood with a lot of worldly habits. And very delicate. There are some people come and wear the robe, very delicate, very sissy like that. But over the years, if they live in the right environment, like in a forest monastery, they have to climb up the hill to clean the water source. They have to do all kinds of work, repairing the water pipe, sweeping the floor, and all that. And then years later, they become tough. 21.9. Naisavati. Then the Venerable Tissa, the Blessed One's paternal cousin, approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him and sat down to one side, miserable, sorrowful, with tears streaming down. Then the Blessed One said to him, Tissa, why are you sitting there, miserable, sorrowful, with tears streaming down? Because, Venerable Sir, the monks have attacked me on all sides with sharp words. And the Buddha said, that, Tissa, is because you admonish others, but cannot bear being admonished yourself. Tissa, this is not proper for you, a clansman who has gone forth out of faith from the household life into homelessness, that you admonish others but cannot accept admonition in return. This is proper for you, Tissa, a clansman who has gone forth out of faith from the household life into homelessness, that you admonish others and accept admonishment in return. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said, why are you angry? Don't be angry. Non-anger is better for you, Tissa. It is to remove anger, conceit and scorn that the holy life is lived, Tissa. It's the end of the sutta. So you see, this Tissa, he like to criticize others. It's very easy to see other people's fault. So he criticized others. But when other people saw his fault and they criticized him, he was not happy, could not take it. So the Buddha said, the holy life is lived to remove anger, conceit and scorn. So as we progress in the holy life, slowly our anger should reduce, our ego should reduce. If people practice the wrong way, you find the ego increase. They think they have some attainment. Instead of being more humble, they become more arrogant. So also the temper don't go down. So you're practicing the right way. Definitely your ego and your temper should go down. So the Buddha advised him, if you advise others, you should accept advice from other people also. We live the holy life to cut our ego. It's proper that we accept criticism whenever we think it's coming from somebody who's sincere. So we stop here tonight. Question: how to cultivate radiation of loving kindness by the mind is stated in the sutta that first you have to develop the first jhana. After you develop jhana, then your mind is strong. Then only you can radiate loving kindness. That is the way taught in the suttas. But a lot of people, they don't have the ability to attain jhana. So they just try to show their loving kindness to others. And you can do this in two ways. One is through your body language. The other is through your verbal language. So if you are kind to others, you practice loving kindness to others, you show it through your body action. When somebody come, you stand up or something, or you invite them to take a seat or something. And then you show it through your verbal language. You speak kind words to people. You don't shout at people. This. So people can sense that you have loving kindness. So that is the initial part. But the higher, more advanced part is to be able to make your mind so strong that you can radiate it and other beings can know. I think that won't help so much because when you chant that one, firstly you got to know what you're chanting because these spirits, these devas and ghosts, they can read your mind. So if you chant something that you don't understand, it's not much point. You have to know what you're chanting, then they read your mind and they know what you are trying to say. So if some of them, when they listen to the chanting and they understand what you are saying, then they may react positively. But some of them, if they are too fierce, then words will not help. They may still attack you or something. It depends on the person. I guess generally it does help. If you repeat this, then you think about it, then you try to practice it more. It's just like you're reminding yourself. Then you show through your body language and your verbal language to others that you have metta. No. But what is true is that just now you talk about boundless metta. That is a very advanced stage. If you can have boundless metta, that means you are able to radiate metta boundless, and then you have achieved the arupa jhana state. But most people, even if you don't achieve that, if you are able to radiate, that means you have some jhana. And if you have some jhana, according to the suttas, you are no more overcome the passions. And when you say passions, generally refer to anger and lust. So if a person has attained jhana, these two go down to considerably. Your lust and your anger will go down considerably, but not the ego. The ego has to be eliminated by wisdom, by understanding the Dhamma, which is the vipassana in the Buddha's teachings. Vipassana is contemplation of the Dhamma. After hearing the Dhamma or reading the Dhamma, then you contemplate and you understand. Then you have wisdom. The depth of wisdom also depending on your jhana. If you have more samadhi, then you have deeper wisdom. If you don't have samadhi, you don't have concentration, then you have shallow wisdom. So like in the case of Devadatta, he had strong jhana, but the ego was still very strong. So he had evil desires. Anagamin has overcome lust. But Anagamin, because he has come to that stage which is quite advanced, has almost finished his work, in Anagamin. So his selfishness is very small because he has only 5 higher fetters remaining, and that 5 higher fetters are attachment to the form realm, attachment to the formless existence, formless rebirth, and then ignorance, and then conceit and restlessness. So this conceit is that I am, I exist. So it's not that strong selfishness, just a minute tinge of ego. Yes, that's why effort is important. Okay, there are some people who do charity, but they are very greedy for merit. So like they're very selective who they give their charity to. On the other hand, there are some people who are really generous. They help everybody that they can. My old devotee in Penang, she supports any monk comes to her house. She doesn't pick and choose. She doesn't criticize monks like some people. They're very selective who they give dana to, and they don't like a particular monk. They talk bad about the monk and all that. It's not a good practice. Because I think metta is, you can say, loving kindness is the root to a lot of wholesome actions. If you have metta, then you have charity, generosity in your heart. You want to help others. And also, if you have metta, loving kindness, you don't want to harm others. So you don't want to kill, you don't want to steal, you don't want to break up people's families by committing adultery, you don't want to lie and cheat people. So metta is the root of a lot of wholesome actions and conduct. That's why metta, loving kindness, is so important. If you have strong jhana, then you can radiate. It's not easy to radiate. It's almost like a kind of psychic power. Because if you are able to radiate out metta, then all beings around can feel your metta. Just like when I was young, I was in a Catholic school. They used to give me, the Christian brothers used to give me holy pictures. Sometimes you see this saint with birds on his shoulder and on his head, and a deer comes to him, and animals come to him because they can feel his love. So all beings want to come to you, because they know you cannot harm them. If you have that kind of ability to radiate loving kindness, then you can affect the area around you. The whole area around you will be very peaceful. And those beings with very disturbed minds, they won't be able to come near, because when they come near, they feel like it's the peaceful vibrations are just like burning them. They said in the suttas that wherever an arahant dwells, that place is very peaceful. So only arahants, maybe you have anagamins around, because their mind, they have attained the 4 jhanas, and even anagamins, the place will be peaceful. So you find a place which is, you have a lot of violence, a lot of killing and all that. It shows there are no holy men around. Maybe most of them are in the north. Okay, shall we end here?